Do you know Next.js has removed middleware? Welcome to our day 7 where I talk about what is middleware and why Next.js replaced it with something called Proxy.
Now, before we try to understand what is middleware and what is proxy, let us try to understand how Next.js works, right? So as we all know, Next.js is a full stack framework. So what we have? We have a front end, we have our front end, and we have a backend, right? But in Next.js, we have very interesting function called middleware, which is very close to front-end system. And the reason why it is close because all the incoming request goes through the middleware. So whenever a front-end makes a API call, it goes to middleware, then it hits the backend. Then whenever the backend responses goes to middleware, and then hits the front-end system. Now, the middleware was supposed to act as a gatekeeper. And the reason is because of its uses. It was meant to use for URL rewrites, redirects, modify header, and auth check. Now, this middleware or the gatekeeper used to work on Edge Runtime. Let's call it Edge Runtime. And the reason why it is because its main purpose was to making application super fast. And the reason is because it was very close to front-end system, and if we used to do a lot of heavy lifting, our app would have been very slow, right? Now, the challenge became when people from other framework started using Next.js. I don't know how many of you remember using Express.js. So in Express.js, we used to basically create API routes. Then we used to have our middleware, right? And this middleware was responsible for making DB calls, doing all the heavy lifting as per the business need. Now, when people migrated from other framework to Next.js, they treated middleware as the same. Now, you must be thinking why even people treated middleware as the same. Because of the name middleware. Second, it had option to basically change the environment. So people started using Node.js runtime instead of Edge, because in Edge we had limited possibilities, but using Node.js as a runtime we can do all the Node.js operation, right? Now the problem with that occurred with this was app became slow. Second, there was some security issues. As it was very close to our front-end system, database lookup was not suggested, and it led to expose some of the vulnerabilities. And also, the app became very slow. So this was the major challenge which Next.js had to face. And that's the reason when they decided to basically update this middleware and rename it to Proxy. Now, as the name suggests, Proxy acts as a gatekeeper. And does all the required things. So with the latest Next.js update, most of the responsibilities that were previously handled by middleware, like redirects, authentication check, and request modification, are now shifting to new proxy system and interception route. The biggest change is that Proxy can use Node.js runtime, which means we can use all the Node.js module operation and write heavier logic directly in this route, something which middleware never allowed because it used to run on Edge runtime, right? So yes, Next.js is moving away from middleware and giving us more powerful node-based proxy system for handling request and interception. Now, if you find this explanation helpful, please share your thoughts and do not forget to follow and subscribe. Till then, meet you with my next update. Bye.